In the Philippines, women entrepreneurs make up a significant 60% of all MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises, driving both economic growth and social change. Despite this, they continue to face major challenges in accessing adequate financing and support. Today, we're looking at how to take bolder steps to bridge this gender financing gap with innovative solutions. We are joined by Greg Moral-Perez, co-founder of the Impact Network, who, through their Working Capital Facility program, provides year-round financial support to women-led businesses. Greg, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning, Rain. Thank you for having us.
Could you kindly briefly describe Impact Network and the specific challenges it addresses for women-led MSMEs, particularly in the Philippines?
Absolutely. Impact Pioneers Network is a network that was founded by Exchange and Will Grow because we saw that there is a financing gap for impact enterprises in the Philippines. So in a general sense, there is that gap already. We can find funders at the grant level up to maybe 30,000 US dollars, maybe 1 million pesos. But then there's a gap from there up to $1 million. And that's a huge challenge. Now, that's at the entrepreneur level. Now, if we even dig deeper into the numbers that we're looking at for women entrepreneurs, there's even a smaller number of women who are able to access the gaps and access financing, rather. And because there are several challenges that present themselves. One, there is a kind of a bias against women entrepreneurs, whether this is deliberate or unintentional. It's there because women are perceived to be less aggressive, and investors tend to be less risk averse. And so putting a bet in the women is a challenge. There's also the challenge of current financial products requiring 3 years profitability, requiring collateral. And so that's a challenge for women as well. And also in terms of accessing this, because there are a lot of expectations still that women will care for the household. The unpaid labor still mostly falls on women. And so even to start a business and to find the initial funding to support this is a barrier. So for Impact Pioneers Network, what we are doing is we're bringing together the ecosystem, both the entrepreneurs, surfacing the entrepreneurs, finding the most high potential ones, the most innovative ones, and then finding the impact pioneers as well. These are the angel investors who are willing to put capital at risk to support women, but they don't know where to find them. They also need some kind of guidance in terms of how to tailor products and services for women. So some of these investors are already investing in the commercial markets, but they do need support from impact pioneers on investing in, these impact enterprises that are very early stage, and how to tailor products and services for women that are more flexible, that take their cash flows into consideration, and who understand the businesses to begin with. So we find that's also a barrier because, as Warren Buffett said, right, I invest in what I know. And if mostly you're not a woman or you don't apply a gender lens, you don't appreciate the opportunities that she's seeing, you are only seeing the risks. And so Priya Thachadi, CEO of Vilgrow Philippines, and myself, and of course the Exchange and Vilgrow teams, we are actively applying the gender lens so that we can provide these opportunities to women entrepreneurs.
And what kind of products and services do they actually begin in a business? And what kind of interest rates might be applied for these entrepreneurs? What kind of equity or control do the VCs and angel investors exert in these businesses? Plus, how do you avoid delinquency considering all of the challenges that females face when they do launch their startup?
That's a great question. Yeah. So as to your first question, what are the products like? It really depends on the type of capital that the women entrepreneur or the enterprise needs. And across the life cycle of the enterprise, they might need grant funding, they might need, for research and development, they might need working capital. And so hence our working capital facility. They might need equity, or they might need, quasi-equity structures like a convertible debt. And so if we're talking about just debt, the debt that can be accessed through the network is normally collateral free. And it ranges depending on the particular member. It can be as low as 5% per annum to, I would say, about 12 to 15% per annum. And that's kind of a risk-based pricing model for the ones that are at the higher end of the spectrum, at the 18%. And at the lower end, at the 5-6%, there is still some the philanthropic lens still applied there. And in terms of what services, normally this also comes with incubation support. And what that means is once an impact investor of the Impact Pioneers Network engages, then you get advice, you get contacts with the network, you get flexible payment schemes, and we're very easy to talk to, very flexible. And so I think that's really an advantage to your question about how do you de-risk, right? Business can be quite volatile, especially if they're very early. There are a lot of things. They're still quite vulnerable. And so having kind of a mentor and somebody who is journeying with you, like with Exchange, we have a one-on-one mentorship. We'll, have a call with the enterprise or have a meeting with the entrepreneurs, let's say weekly or twice a week or monthly, depending on what they need. And we'll talk about their challenges. What are you going through? And, to your point, there is a lot of support needed beyond just the financing, but also, like I said, access to markets, access to mentors. Perhaps there is support in terms of digitalizing their businesses, accessing the larger market through e-commerce, and definitely a community of support is something that is helpful for women entrepreneurs.
You were saying that right now you've had a few exits, some of them, but there remains one under your care and oversight. What are the typical reasons that they actually exit your program?
So for Exchange in particular, when we're talking about exits, this is a financial exit where what we do is we prepare them to access follow-on funding. So when we do deploy, say, 50,000 US dollars, that's really just at the early stage, and we expect and we know that as they scale, they will need continued funding. So that might look like $200,000, $300,000, and so if it's an equity position, our exit, it's an equity position, then that looks like a buyout from the new investor who has put in money in the enterprise. If it is kind of a debt product, then a graduation would be completely paying off the debt successfully. And if we count that, then it's actually more exits.
Mm-hmm. Under your support, do you see a greater rate of success since women entrepreneurs often face cultural and structural barriers, as you mentioned, when seeking financing? So in your experience, how can empowering women in business lead to better personal financial security for them and their families? What kind of experience have you seen personally among those who were within your program?
Yeah, the first, before even financial, the entrepreneurial mindset, or the somebody who has kind of that, who has been bitten by the entrepreneurial bug, is also looking for freedom to create something. So they want to build something, and there's that. And if they're able to build the business successfully, again with the support of Impact Pioneers Network, will grow Exchange, the mentors, the ecosystem at large, then there's the potential for it to become a family business. There's that financial sustainability that will go beyond, the lifetime of a job, right? So we're seeing that a lot of challenges, if you have a job, maybe you have HMO at the point that you are employed. But at the point that you retire, this is when health insurers will no longer insure you. And so financially, if you're able to, run your own business, you can be in charge of your finances. You can have your kids join you. And we've seen this not only, at this level where we're investing, but also among the poorest of the poor, where I have some experience with supporting women entrepreneurs. We've seen that this is really a powerful tool to end generational poverty, because they're breaking the cycle of poverty, where they're not limited by them not being able to find high-paying jobs, them not having a graduate degree necessarily. So I would say that entrepreneurship is a great equalizer. And if you build it right, of course, it comes with its own risks, right? But if you build it right, then definitely there is that financial freedom, that potential to have your family join you, and again, to end generational poverty if you're at the bottom of the pyramid.
Ending generational debt and generational poverty sounds really good, but your program provides short-term collateral-free loans. How important is it to offer flexible financial solutions, especially given that 30% of women entrepreneurs are unsure about the kind of financing they need?
Yes, flexibility is a key feature that you won't find in more traditional financing, and that's one of the things that Impact Pioneers is offering. Why is that important? Because to your point, right, at this early stage, women entrepreneurs are still figuring out their business model, or maybe they're accessing, let's say it's a purchase order from a big corporation. And especially today with the cash crunch, a lot of big corporations are passing on that cash crunch to their suppliers. And, their accounts payable is ballooning. And the ones that are getting hit by that are the women entrepreneurs, the smaller entrepreneurs who are in the supply side. So flexibility in terms of repayment, in terms of, as a concrete example, it might be for a more traditional loan product, debt product, you would have to pay the same amount monthly. But based on the business model or on the revenue model, it might be that the woman entrepreneur can only pay in 90 days when she gets paid by the company who has ordered from her. So that flexibility, instead of saying, pay me the same amount, pay back the loan in the same amount every month, versus saying, okay, maybe you can just pay the interest rate monthly, and then once you're able to collect, then we can you can pay a balloon payment. That's one example of flexibility. Mm-hmm. Another one might be in terms of, being creative in terms of recourse. So while it's collateral free, it might be that there is an assignment of receivable. If the entrepreneur already has made an invoice to the company and is expecting that payment, that kind of recourse can still de-risk the impact investor, while at the same time allowing them to still provide the credit to the woman entrepreneur. So flexibility, whether it's in terms of payment scheme, whether it's in terms of tenor, whether it's in terms of what the money might be used for, that's another aspect, because sometimes the funding might be restricted to, say, only purchase of inventory. But if the woman entrepreneur needs the funding for making payroll, then that kind of flexibility is also important for her for the enterprise to keep the lights on and to thrive.
All right. Well, we need to pause for a quick break, but coming up, Greg Moral-Perez talks to us about how empowering women in business not only allows her to break financial barriers, but also transform families and communities. Stay tuned. We'll be back on Follow the Money.
This is Pinky Webb, and it's a great opportunity. Kami niyong lingkod si Corina Sanchez Rojas.
Corina Sanchez.
As they uphold their mission is to be proud
Dalawang mamamahayag na subok sa tapang at talino.
To talk with all of you. Maraming salamat.
Pagsasamahin ng isa. Agenda. Mondays to Fridays, 6 p.m. Only on BNC, the Billionario News Channel.
Let's take a look at today's headline.
Get to know the latest weather update and forecast with information to help us understand important aspects regarding our climate.
You're leading the charge of combating climate change, and you finally experienced it.
More weather updates and stories about the environment, climate change, and disaster preparedness, where we'll stay together, whatever the weather.
Weather HQ with Paulo Del Rosario, 9 a.m. on BNC, the Billionario News Channel.
Welcome back. We are still on Follow the Money and Greg Moral-Perez. Greg, gender lens investing, something you mentioned earlier, is still underrepresented in global financing conversations. In your view, what should impact investors or governments do to prioritize women-led MSMEs in their funding strategies?
Thanks, Rain. That's a great question. I think in terms of policy, government can play a huge role in terms of really directing support for women in particular. And I think it was highlighted that the DTI has identified, several ways to support MSMEs, and these are things that MSMEs and women in particular need. Like I think we discussed earlier, access to markets, digitalization, financing. And so really understanding that target market and targeting, creating policies and products that support that market is something that government can help with. Apart from the overall ease of doing business, we're seeing that there are many government programs. DOST has grant funding, DTI has Manila Fame. But it would be great for government to come up with something comprehensive in terms of DSWD with the gender lens, DOLE with employment policies. Of course, the DTI, DICT, DOST, and so all of these government agencies coming together with a unified program rather than something that tends to be quite ad hoc or quite siloed, is a huge impact. There might also be some fiscal or some incentives in terms of investments. For investors, so that capital will flow into these women entrepreneurs, so that can be in the form of guarantees. And we've seen these with some international funds. There used to be an IFC guarantee, and so that we can promote that, right? And then in terms of education, again, going back to the role of government, starting them young in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of gender empowerment, in terms of dealing with bias. It really starts there. Structural issues are really, how we work together, how we engage with each other. And as I mentioned earlier, there are still these undertones, right, of patriarchy, where there's still a lot of microaggressions for women. That has become... Yeah, accepted and normalized. So
if we can mention that it's actually MSME Development Month, and as we celebrate that, what are some of the long-term impacts you envision your initiative having on the economic landscape of the Philippines? For perhaps our 1 minute left.
Okay, so Impact Pioneers, we're looking to invest in 100 enterprises in the next 5 years that, of course, applying a gender lens. And so the massive impact, so we need not just the financing, but the scale, right? The massive action will then lead to, our bet is it leads to an inclusive Philippines, a resilient Philippines, and a more equitable Philippines. So that's kind of the big picture, because when women are in charge, when women are leading enterprises, they're able to see opportunities for women, the need for the care economy, getting jobs. Another example would be reusable diapers. And so there is a transformative role, moving from business models that are extractive to regenerative, business models that are exploitative to fair, and women are at the forefront of that.
Wonderfully said. Thank you so much, Greg, for joining us today and sharing these insights on how we can better support women entrepreneurs. Your work is making a powerful difference, and we look forward to seeing even more women thrive in the business landscape. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rain.
And before we go, we leave you with this thought from the president of the World Bank, former President Jim Yong Kim, addressing the gender financing gap isn't just the right thing to do, it's a smart thing for economies and investors. And that is it for today's edition of Follow the Money. I'm Rain Musngi. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it here on BNC, the Billionaire News Channel, always on top.
It has no authorization.
We hope and pray that it will not rise.
Thanks for having me here.
An orchestrated vicious...
myself, basically.
We always say that.
It depends.
A well-concerted effort.
Perhaps I can reiterate.
My greatest beefsteak